1. Learning architecture across 1,700 medial research papers from science and engineering to biomedical research. Part 1, number 1700, June 27, 2026. Gerald C. EclaireMD Foundation. Category: Self-Reflection. Preface: I finally realized that I am not a good librarian. When I reached paper No. 1700, I began looking back over the past 8.5 years of writing. I discovered that I have been so focused on conducting research and publishing new findings that I rarely pause to organize or reflect on the overall journey. I published my first medical research paper on December 7, 2017. It took almost 1 full year to complete this 300-word medical research outline. I submitted it during the first half of 2017, and it was accepted for presentation at the International Diabetes Federation IDF World Diabetes Congress held in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates. Among thousands of submitted abstracts, only a limited number were accepted. Within the diabetes management category, my paper was selected as one of only a few presentations. Although it contained only about 300 words, it summarized approximately 10 years of my personal diabetes management through lifestyle intervention. The paper was quite different from most other medical research papers. Rather than emphasizing medications or statistical analyses, it focused on 8 years of long-term lifestyle management supported by continuous personal data collection comprising millions of data points. At that time, I did not realize that my first written medical research paper would become the beginning of a much longer and much larger medical research journey. Between January 1, 2017, and June 27, 2026, I completed 1,700 research papers. Looking back, I now realize that these papers document not only my medical findings but also my own transformation from a mathematician, engineer, and entrepreneur to an independent biomedical researcher whose primary goal has always been simple: to understand my own health and survive multiple life-threatening diseases. This milestone paper No. 1700, dated June 27, 2026 is therefore different. It marks not only my 1,700th publication but also the first anniversary of my discharge from Stanford Hospital following my hemorrhagic stroke near the Pontine region. Instead of presenting another technical discovery, it reflects on how this journey began, how it evolved, and what I have learned along the way. Introduction: He came to the United States in 1969 at the age of 22 from a village in Taiwan. At that time, I weighed approximately 140 pounds, with a BMI of about 20. I was a thin young man whose life revolved around studying and eating healthy, natural food, not luxury or an abundant food supply. During the following decade, I attended 7 universities and earned 5 additional academic degrees in engineering and business administration while continuously expanding my knowledge across multiple disciplines in mathematics, physics, and several other unrelated academic fields. After beginning my professional engineering career in San Francisco in 1976, I continued studying at night and on weekends. I pursued doctoral studies in civil engineering at the University of California, Berkeley, while also completing an MBA at Golden Gate University. Maintaining a full-time engineering career while remaining a full-time student for many years gradually changed my lifestyle. I exercised less, worked longer hours, and steadily gained weight. Looking back, I believe my chronic health problems began during this period. By the early 1980s, specifically in 1982 at age 35, I had become overweight, with a BMI over 25. By 1995, at age 48, after my semiconductor chip design company became successful and completed its initial public offering on Wall Street, I had become obese, with a BMI over 30. I vividly remember visiting the Taj Mahal in India in 1996. Climbing a short flight of stairs became extremely difficult for me. I had to grasp the handrail and pull myself upward one step at a time. At that time, I regarded it simply as fatigue. Today, I recognize it as one of the earliest warnings of my declining health. The next warning came when I unexpectedly discovered that I had type 2 diabetes. While visiting Taiwan, I noticed a hospital providing free blood glucose screening on the street. My finger stick glucose measurement exceeded 360 milligrams VL. The medical staff immediately advised me to seek hospital care because my glucose level was dangerously high. That was the moment I first learned that I had diabetes. Several years later, I experienced my first 2 heart attacks in 1994 at age 47. Even then, I did not fully appreciate the connection between obesity, diabetes, and cardiovascular disease. By 2001, however, after suffering 3 more heart attacks, I realized that my life was in immediate danger. I understood that I could die at any time. That realization completely changed the direction of my life. I made a very difficult decision to sell my successful high-technology company, walk away from Silicon Valley and Wall Street, and return to Asia, where I was born and raised. During the following 9 years, I traveled throughout Japan, Taiwan, and China while devoting myself to charitable work. At the same time, I self-studied psychology and personality disorders by reading more than 300 books, including the DSM, along with numerous clinical case reports, trying to understand the sources of the tremendous psychological stress that had dominated the later stage of my professional life. Looking back, I now believe I was partly correct. My physical diseases developed from years of unhealthy lifestyle habits. But my repeated heart attacks were also strongly influenced by prolonged psychological stress associated with my business career. That realization motivated my first major period of self-study, which focused on psychology rather than medicine. Around 2010, another turning point arrived. During a routine medical examination in California, my physician informed me that my kidneys were approaching failure and that dialysis might soon become necessary. By then, I was also suffering from diabetic neuropathy, a chronic toe infection that failed to heal for several months, and diabetic retinopathy that threatened my vision. Retinopathy and neuropathy could lead to disability, but kidney failure represented a far greater threat. My mother and my brother-in-law had both died from kidney failure and multiple organ failure caused by long-standing diabetes. Their experiences made the danger intensely personal. That day in 2010 became my final wake-up call. I wrapped up my charitable work, halted my psychological studies and psychotherapy, and made a life-changing decision to return permanently to Silicon Valley because of its proximity to Stanford Hospital. I decided to study medicine not to earn another degree or network with professionals, but to save my own life by mastering the science of disease and health. The diagnosis of impending kidney failure placed me in a state of panic. From my own family experience, I knew what kidney failure meant. Looking at my own medical condition, I believed I was simply following the same path. Unless I changed something dramatically, I would eventually reach the same destination. I then asked myself a simple question: what should I do? As a businessman and entrepreneur, I approached the problem in the only way I knew. Instead of applying for admission to medical schools or asking for advice from medical doctors, I built my own research environment, not an organization. At 63 years old, I had neither the time nor the belief that returning to medical school was the right answer. Instead, I decided to create my own learning environment and a personalized pathway to healing my body. Leveraging the wealth from my high-tech career, I established a specialized medical research team, surrounding myself with 6 to 8 professionals who could teach me as we worked together. This wasn't about earning credentials or impressing others. It was a race against time to understand medicine well enough to save my own life. I started by hiring a UCSF physician who specialized in medical research rather than patient care. Alongside her, I brought on a full-time registered nurse as my research assistant, a nutritionist, and several other professionals including a former employee with an electrical engineering degree to ensure all necessary areas of expertise were covered. Together, we began building the foundation of my medical research program. Simultaneously, I came to a critical realization: medication alone was not the answer. Between 1990 and 2009, I took maximum doses of 4 separate diabetes medications for nearly 2 decades, only to watch my health steadily decline. My glucose level eventually exceeded 360 mg DL, and my HbA1c reached a dangerous 13% to 14%. Those numbers were the ultimate proof that depending on medications alone was failing to save me. I still vividly remember one of my final conversations with my physician on East Bay before I took matters into my own hands. He repeatedly lectured me that I needed to change my lifestyle. "What exactly do you mean by lifestyle?" I asked him. "What you eat and what you do every day," he replied. "What foods should I eat? What kind of exercise should I do?" Instead of providing any practical guidance, he told me to make separate appointments with a dietitian for nutrition counseling and a physical therapist for exercise. I asked him again for real, actionable advice. Instead, he kept emphasizing that I was obese and unhealthy, recycling me back into the same healthcare system and pharmacological loop that had failed me for 20 years. I looked directly at him and said, "Doctor, you are heavier than I am. You are obese too. Why do you keep telling me that I have a problem, without telling me how to solve it?" The irony was glaring. At that moment, I woke up. I realized that I could not blindly depend on physicians who could not even manage their own health to save mine. I left the office frustrated and deeply disappointed. I was facing the immediate threat of kidney failure and dialysis. I needed answers, not a merry-go-round of referrals to other healthcare providers. At that moment, I lost much of my trust in the existing healthcare system. That experience became the definitive turning point in my life. I decided that if the medical system would not give me the answers, I would find them myself. Shortly afterward, I moved from the East Bay to the peninsula to be closer to Stanford University, found a new physician for routine laboratory tests, and began my own journey of self-studying lifestyle medicine. Looking back, my frustration was not directed toward one individual. It was toward a healthcare system that is highly organized to manage chronic disease and prescribe medications, yet often does not teach patients how to prevent or reverse disease through lifestyle modification. That realization became the driving force behind my medical research journey during last 17 years and changed the direction of the remainder of my life during the first 8 years. From 2010 through 2017, I self-studied medicine and food science without an institution, professors, or classmates. I used a dictionary daily to learn every new medical term. For example, I initially used the term blood sugar instead of glucose, high blood sugar instead of hyperglycemia, and high blood pressure instead of hypertension. One day, the UCSF physician used the word dyslipidemia. I asked her what it meant. She explained that DICE means abnormal, lipid refers to cholesterol and other fatty substances in the bloodstream, and therefore dyslipidemia means abnormal blood lipid levels. That was how I learned medicine word by word, jargon by jargon, sentence by sentence, page by page, and paper by paper. Ultimately, I spent over 85,000 hours reading more than 10,000 published medical papers, an investment of time equivalent to completing the rigorous 8-year requirement for over 4.25 MD degrees. To this day, there is a distinct and observable mark left by my years of self-study. After I delivered a keynote speech, a Harvard medical professor approached me with a fascinating observation. He said, "I can tell your medical knowledge comes from self-study. You understand the deepest meaning of these complex concepts, but your pronunciation of the terminology is amusing. It is not what we hear from traditionally trained physicians." He was incredibly perceptive, and he was absolutely right. To this day, there is a distinct and observable mark left by my years of self-study. After I delivered a keynote speech, a Harvard medical professor approached me with a fascinating observation. He said, "I can tell your medical knowledge comes from self-study. You understand the deepest meaning of these complex concepts, but your pronunciation of the terminology is amusing. It is not what we hear from traditionally trained physicians." He was incredibly perceptive, and he was absolutely right. This is part 1.